death of Andreas Vesalius, recognized as the founder of modern anatomy, in turn a fundament of the scientific revolution that brought to the accomplishment of contemporary evidence-based medicine. To better understand how his main work, the Humani Corporis Fabrica, was conceived, the motivation behind it, and its importance, not only in the history of medicine, but also in the development of scientific methodology, it is useful to remember shortly the main steps of Vesalius' biography in order to insert chronologically his venue to Padua and the reasons for this choice that we know as determinant for the realization of the Fabrica. Born in Brussels in December 31, 1514, after courses in arts and philosophy at Leuven, Vesalius studied medicine in Paris without obtaining his degree because of the outbreak of the war between France and Spain. Already as a student in Paris, his interest in anatomy was very strong. We see here the graveyard of the Innocents, which was located near the today's Beaubourg. Here Vesalius and his companions went together and studied human remains. And while back in Leuven, 1536, he assembled his first skeleton with the help of his friend, a Frisian student, Gemma, with bones for one of the city gallows, as we see from this picture of 19th century. A year later, he went to Venice and then to Padua, where, in the same year, on December 3rd, he took the tentamen, the preparatory exam, on the 5th of December. On the 5th of December, he graduated in medicine in the Episcopal Palace. We see here the original report of his successful examination, still preserved in the ancient archive of our university. The day after, he was appointed professor of surgery with the obligo, that is, additional duty, of lecturing in anatomy. During his stay, in 1538, he published the Tabulae Anatomicae Sex. In 1543, the Epitome, and his main work, the Humani Corporis Fabrica Libri Septem. Nominated physician to the Emperor Charles V, he followed his court through Europe and Brussels. After the abdication of Charles V since 1556, he belonged to the court of the new emperor, Philip II, which was transferred to Madrid. In 1564, he made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. On his return, he became ill, and after a heavy storm, was put ashore on the Venetian island of Zakynthos, today Zakynthos, where he died. I am pleased to show you a picture of the recent commemoration of this great man, supported by the Belgian embassy. We see here, beside myself, on the right side of the picture, Theodorix of the Belgian embassy, and in between, the author of the most recent translation in English of the Fabrica, Professor Garrison. Commemoration which took place last year in the Greek island of Zakynthos, where Vesalius died. You see from this picture how nice is the sea during summer in Zakynthos. But still today, I got a documentation that shows us how dangerous can be that sea, showing us a boat who had a shipwreck as the galley on which Vesalius was getting back from Jerusalem. Absolutely innovative, as we will see many contents, but especially in its method, his main work. Printed in Basel, the Humani Corporis Fabrica is an impressive volume in folio written in Latin. divided into 7 main chapters or libri. Before a concise excursus on the innovative contribution of the De Humani Corporis Fabrica, let's to consider the Vesalian cultural choice, necessary prelude to his outstanding accomplishments. Why did Vesalius want to come to Padua? The answer is in this appreciation given by himself to his university. Padua, quotation, Padua, the most renowned school of the world, the Veneto Senate, the most famous and liberal for scientific studies. Here we have a visual documentation of this sentence showing us the wall of our university, which is still literally covered by thousands of coat of arms of the pupils of the noble families of all over Europe who came in those times in Padua, as Carlos Viesca so recently during the seminar we organized there together. Indeed, the cultural environment that Vesalius found on his arrival in Padua in 1537 was what the young scholar had longed for, making the purposeful choice of joining this university where the anatomical investigation of the human body had a time-honored tradition. Vesalius was deeply dissatisfied with the traditional Galenic education received in Paris, where he rarely could engage himself in dissection. But how they originated in Padua University this special condition for the study of anatomy? Here, since the 13th century, studies favored the empiristic content of the biological works of Aristotle, promoting as a result the observation of nature, an essential aspect of the revival of the anatomical investigation. The first autopsy in Padua was carried out around the 1300s by Pietro d'Abano, considered the founder of the Padua Medical School, at least since the mid-1400s, the statutes of the Padua School established the obligation to proceed yearly with the anatomical dissection. But prevailing was still the influence of Galen, whose teaching was transmitted in a critical manner, emblematically represented by the modality with which were carried out the lessons in anatomy. The professor merely commented ex cathedra upon the text of Galen without assuming any direct role in dissection, as we see from this picture from the very famous Incunabulum Fasciculus Medicinae, a copy of which is preserved in our medical school library. With the Venetian expansion of 1405, Padua had become the state university of the St. Mark's Republic, which promoted further its already well-established reputation. In this background was situated the activity of the pre-Vesalian anatomists in Padua, and in particular the teaching of Alessandro Benedetti, who at the end of the 14th century, in his book Historia Corporis Humani, emphasized the relevance of human dissection in medical training, promoting the construction of a dismountable anatomical theater aimed to an improved instruction based upon direct observation. Quotation, I urge everyone, both apprentices and physicians or surgeons, to visit such a theater, which should be attended with solemnity at least once a year, because it is there that we contemplate the things from reality. Therefore, Vesalius' choice was motivated wisely, and during the following stimulating years spent in Padua, his Fabrica was realized as the result of the fruitful interaction between the personality of the young Flemish anatomist and the favorable cultural and academic environment of this city. At the State University of the Serenissima, Vesalius was allowed to freely dissect and conduct his studies as in no other place he had visited. The problem of the rete mirabile provides an example of the releasing experience during the Paduan period from an critical acceptance of Galenic theories. Galen attributed a fundamental role to this rete mirabile, marvelous network, a hypothetical vascular formation situated at the base of the skull. According to Galenic physiology, the vital spirit was formed in the heart by refinement of the natural spirit, which came from the liver. This vital spirit was then brought to the base of the brain by the carotid arteries, which branched off at this point into an intricate mesh of tiny blood vessels, precisely the rete mirabile. Here it was further refined and transformed into animal spirit, which, distributed through the nerves, which were deemed to be hollow, endowed the body with sensitivity and motion. The rete mirabile constitutes a proof that Galen based its studies on the observation of lower species, since this anatomical formation is evident in ungulates but does not exist in humans. Vesalio accepted and portrayed the rete mirabile in the Tabulae Anatomicae Sex, a compendium of illustrations of human anatomy, which is published in 1538, at the beginning of his professorship in Padua. But in 1543 in the Fabrica, it decidedly denied its existence. Quotation: how many things have been accepted on the word of Galen? Among them is that wonderful reticular plexus. Indeed, I am completely astonished at my stupidity. In my devotion to Galen, I never undertook the public dissection of a human head without having available that of a lamb or ox to supply whatever I could not find in the human. But the internal carotid artery wholly failed to produce such a reticular plexus. In this way, Galen's physiology is deprived of an essential fundament, paving a road that will go far. Indeed, Vesalio's denial of this anatomical structure opens also a reconsideration of the entire physiology of the nervous system. Vesalio's heritage has influenced the centuries to come. The innovation brought by the Fabrica is generated by Vesalio's method based on direct, systematic observation on the human body, combined with a peculiar teaching attitude, using naturalistic illustrations. It must, in fact, be said that the Fabrica is a milestone also from an educational standpoint. It reveals, among other traits of Vesalio's personality, the attitude of a professor, patient investigation of the most secret details of the human body, and at the same time enthusiastic teacher who involves his students in the informations he gleans from nature. Vesalio's contribution to the use of anatomical illustration is pioneering, since for the first time in the history of medicine, iconography is not a mere ornament, but an intrinsic and highly informative part of the contents that integrates the written morphological description with an immediate visual image. The woodcuts of the Fabrica possess a beauty and naturalism that were previously unknown. The principles set forth by the Venetian school of Titian, since the drawings are considered having authored by one of these pupils, the Flemish Jan Valkalka. Just to give an example, as a neurologist, I'm pleased to consider the magnificent woodcuts of the brain. Doubtless, they are extraordinarily realistic, possessing a naturalism that was unknown previously, even more so in comparison with the best previous representation of this organ given by Berengario da Carpi, who was operating in Bologna, just 20 years before, as you can see in the picture on the left of the screen. The difference is quite evident. The famous title page of the Fabrica portrays Vesalius, who, having stepped down from the teacher's platform, personally dissects the cadaver, marking a radical contrast with the scene of dissection reported in Fascicolo de Medicina a few decades, as we have seen before. Vesalio works alone at the dissecting table. The three individuals, lector, ostensor, and dissector, taking part in a demonstration of a Galenic anatomy, disappear. The autonomous, independent character of this modern anatomy arises from the fusion of Homo sapiens and Homo faber into a single new investigator. The Flemish anatomist's work marks the new anatomical research, which is now established on the observation of nature and on its systematic description, both in scientific and artistic terms, on direct verification of the cadaver per oculos, instead of a critical acceptance of its description per aures, seeing, not only listening. In the inscription he wrote on one of his best-known anatomical figures, the meditating skeleton in the epitome, he makes difference to the mortal destiny of the body. Splendor is dissolved by death, and through the snow-white limbs steals Stygian hue to spoil the grace of form. If this is what he thinks about the mortal destiny of the mortal part of the man, the body, the esteem with which Vesalio engaged in his research is expressed in the caption he wrote on the very same skeleton, but printed in the fabrica, where the written words are completely changed, and where he refers now no longer to the body, but to the human soul. Vivitur ingenio, cetera mortis etera, erunt. Genius life song, all else is mortal. That is, we will continue to live because of our creativity. Everything else will be destroyed by the death. On the background of the 16th century Padua University, quoted as the cradle of modern medicine, and of the Titian's Venice, the author of the Fabrica stands out as a Renaissance man already bound for the knowledge gained through the personal, critical observation of the nature, the only procedure accepted since then as a reliable judgment on the validity of the inherited scientific tradition. Thank you very much for your kind attention.